The bright lights of the international news studio reflected sharply on the polished glass walls. Cameras blinked on and off as reporters whispered quietly, preparing for one of the most anticipated political broadcasts of the year. The room buzzed like a storm before it broke. At the center sat Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, known for her sharp tongue and fearless speeches. Opposite her, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, calm and poised, radiated quiet strength. The world watched, holding its breath. Then AOC leaned forward, eyes piercing. "Captain Traoré," she said, voice steady but cold, "many see you as dangerous. Dangerous for your country, for the region, even for global peace." The room froze. Reporters exchanged uneasy glances. The word dangerous hung heavy in the air, loaded, threatening. Cameras zoomed in. Millions of viewers online paused, their hearts pounding. Ibrahim Traoré looked directly into the camera, unshaken. His lips moved. But the words didn't come yet. The tension was unbearable. Seconds stretched like hours. The studio lights seemed to dim under the weight of that single word. Dangerous. AOC's gaze never faltered. Her face was set, confident, unyielding. But behind her sharp words, a subtle unease flickered. She knew she had forced the moment. But could Traoré answer back? Then Ibrahim's calm voice broke through the silence. "Dangerous," he said, just one word. It was soft, almost gentle, but the power behind it exploded like thunder. Dangerous, for those who profit from keeping my people in chains. A hush fell. The studio felt the quake of his message. He wasn't the threat. Those who exploited his country were. Across the world, viewers felt a surge of emotion. Social media exploded. People shared the clip in disbelief. Was this man a villain, or a hero speaking truths too many feared? Behind Traoré's calm exterior lay years of pain, sacrifice, and hope. Born in a small village, he had seen his people suffer under endless corruption, poverty, and neglect. He lost friends to violence, families torn apart by greed and power struggles. Yet, he never lost faith. As a soldier, he vowed to fight not just with weapons but with words, with courage that could inspire a nation. Now, in this glittering studio filled with cameras and flashing lights, he carried the weight of his homeland on his shoulders. AOC's accusation was more than politics. It was a challenge to everything he stood for. But his one sentence did more than respond. It tore down walls, broke silence, and reached hearts worldwide. His story was only beginning. The studio air grew heavy with silence after AOC's sharp accusation. The word dangerous echoed, not just in the room but across screens worldwide. Cameras stayed fixed on Traoré. The moment stretched unbearably. People watching at home felt their hearts tighten. Who was this man they'd only heard about? Was he truly a threat, or was something bigger at play? Traoré's eyes did not dart nervously. Instead, they held steady, calm, and filled with a quiet fire. His life wasn't about threats or fear. It was about hope. Hope for his country, for the millions who believed in change. As the seconds ticked by, the weight of expectation pressed on him like a mountain. But in those eyes was a lifetime of struggle, sacrifice, and courage. The world waited for his response, wondering if he would crumble or rise. And then his voice came, low, firm, and so simple it shocked everyone. "Dangerous," Ibrahim said slowly, his voice steady. "I am dangerous only to those who steal from my people." That one sentence struck like lightning. A ripple went through the studio, cameras catching every face, some stunned, others skeptical. The reporters' pens stopped moving. The buzz of whispers filled the air. But on social media, the clip exploded instantly. Millions replayed the words, sharing, debating, and crying. For many, it was the truth spoken out loud. The voice of a man who stood for justice against corruption and greed. Behind that calm voice was a story of a soldier who chose to fight not with violence, but with truth. A leader who risked everything to protect the vulnerable. For the first time, the world saw not a threat, but a hero. Before the cameras, behind the calm eyes, lay memories that shaped Ibrahim Traoré. He remembered his village, dusty roads, small homes, children playing barefoot. He remembered nights filled with fear, families losing loved ones to violence and poverty. His own father, a humble farmer, taught him that real strength was protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. He learned early that power could be dangerous if abused, but powerful if used with heart. Years later, after his military service, Traoré returned home to find the same struggles unchanged. He saw corruption ruling like a shadow over his people's lives. It was then he made a promise, to be a voice for the silenced, to be the dangerous man AOC spoke of, but dangerous only to those who harmed his people's future. That promise had brought him here, to the bright lights and millions watching, ready to speak, ready to lead. The studio lights seemed brighter now, almost blinding, as the cameras captured every subtle movement. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sat poised, her expression sharp, as if ready to deliver a verdict that could change the course of the broadcast. The air was thick with anticipation. Ibrahim Traoré's calm presence contrasted the tension. His hands rested lightly on the desk, but inside, his heart beat with the steady rhythm of a man prepared for whatever would come. He knew the stakes were high. Millions of eyes were locked on him. The crowd behind the cameras whispered, sensing that something historic was about to unfold. Reporters exchanged quick glances. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of equipment. Then AOC's voice cut through the quiet. "Captain Traoré, your leadership is dangerous. Dangerous to stability, to peace." Her words were sharp, a deliberate challenge. The cameras zoomed in on Traoré's face. For a moment, no one moved. Time seemed to freeze. Ibrahim Traoré looked at AOC steadily. The world waited for his response, expecting anger, a fiery rebuttal. But what came was different. A simple, powerful sentence delivered with quiet strength. "Dangerous," he repeated slowly, his voice calm and unwavering. "I am dangerous only to those who keep my people in chains." His words hit like a wave crashing onto the shore, unexpected and unstoppable. The room fell silent again, but this time it was filled with awe. Behind the studio walls, viewers around the globe shared the moment. Social media lit up as the clip spread like wildfire. People saw not a man who threatened chaos, but a leader speaking truth to power. This was not just a rebuttal. It was a declaration, a promise to fight for justice with dignity. The power of one sentence shattered the narrative and sent shockwaves far beyond the studio. Away from the cameras, Ibrahim Traoré's story was woven from hardship and resilience. He had grown up in a small village where hope was a fragile flame. Poverty and fear shadowed every day, but his parents taught him the value of courage and kindness. They told him that true strength was protecting those who could not protect themselves. As a young soldier, Traoré witnessed injustice firsthand. Corruption drained the lifeblood of his people, and silence was the enemy. But instead of despair, he found purpose. His calm defiance on live TV was the result of years spent fighting quietly, gathering strength, and standing firm for those who had no voice. This broadcast was not just about politics. It was the moment a new chapter began, where a leader's pain became the world's hope. As Ibrahim Traoré's calm sentence echoed through the broadcast, the world's reaction was immediate and powerful. Newsrooms scrambled to replay the clip. Social media exploded with thousands of posts, shares, and comments. "Who is this man?" many asked. "Why hasn't the world listened to him before?" Across continents, from small villages to major cities, people felt a strange, stirring hope. Here was a leader who spoke not with anger, but with quiet courage, a man unafraid to call out injustice, even when powerful voices condemned him. Some viewers wept quietly at the truth they saw reflected in his words. Others felt a surge of pride, recognizing a voice that dared to challenge centuries of silence and pain. Meanwhile, in the studio, reporters whispered behind cameras. The narrative had shifted dramatically. No longer just a dangerous figure, Traoré was becoming a symbol, a beacon for those tired of broken promises. The broadcast had changed more than politics. It had touched hearts. Far away in a modest home, a mother watched the broadcast with trembling hands and tears streaming down her face. Her son had once walked the same dusty paths as Traoré, caught in the endless cycle of poverty and violence. When Traoré spoke, she heard the voice of every parent who prayed for a better future for their children. The weight of hope and pain mingled as she whispered, "Finally, someone who understands." Her eyes reflected the hardships of a lifetime, the sleepless nights, the hunger, the loss, but they also shone with something new, a fragile spark of faith. For her and millions like her, Traoré was more than a leader. He was a promise that the world could change. Back in the studio, the weight on Traoré's shoulders grew heavier with every passing moment. He knew his words carried more than just a message. They held the hopes and fears of millions. The dangerous label was more than a political attack. It was a test of his resolve. But he had prepared for this. Years of struggle had taught him that truth was the most powerful weapon and silence the greatest enemy. As cameras continued to roll, Traoré's heart remained steady. This was not about winning debates or proving critics wrong. It was about standing firm for justice, dignity, and the future of his people. His calm defiance was a beacon in a world too often shadowed by fear. In the moments after his powerful sentence, Ibrahim Traoré sat quietly in the studio, his face a mask of calm. But inside, emotions churned like a storm. He thought of his people, their faces, their struggles, the mothers who worried about their children's future, the farmers whose fields were dry and barren, the youth who dreamed of peace and opportunity, but faced walls built by greed and silence. For years, Traoré had carried their pain silently, learning to hide his fear behind a steady gaze. Today, he didn't need to shout or rage. One simple sentence had carried the weight of all their hopes. He was dangerous only to those who wanted to keep the world blind to their suffering. But being the voice of millions was not easy. Every word came with risk. Every truth shared could make enemies. Yet he was ready, because silence was no longer an option. Within hours, the broadcast had become the most talked about moment on the planet. Across social media platforms, people from all walks of life shared the clip of Traoré's calm, defiant sentence. For some, it was a revelation, a reminder that leaders could stand for justice without violence. For others, it was a call to action. Messages poured in from people inspired by his courage, students, activists, parents, soldiers, each touched by his steady voice and clear purpose. In small towns and big cities alike, people lit candles and prayed for change. In cafes and classrooms, conversations sparked about truth, hope, and the power of speaking out. Traoré's words had become more than a sentence. They were a movement. And with every share, every like, every comment, the world's gaze turned toward a leader, born not from fear, but from fierce love for his people. As the studio lights dimmed and the broadcast ended, Ibrahim Traoré returned to his quiet room, a simple space filled with books and memories. Here, away from the cameras, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. He remembered the nights spent walking dusty roads, the voices of his village calling for hope. He thought of the sacrifices made, the tears shed, and the promises kept. His calm wasn't weakness. It was strength forged in fire. He knew the road ahead would be long and full of challenges, but with every heartbeat he carried the strength of a people who refused to be broken. One sentence had shattered expectations, but the journey to healing had only just begun. The spotlight that once felt like a burden now felt like a beacon. Ibrahim Traoré understood that leadership was more than commands. It was bearing the hopes, fears, and dreams of millions. Every decision, every word, carried the weight of history and the future. He remembered the faces of children playing in dusty fields, their laughter fragile and precious. Their innocence was a reminder that the fight was never just political. It was personal. Traoré's calm strength inspired those around him. People saw not just a soldier or a politician, but a man who had lived pain and turned it into purpose. As the world watched, he vowed to be a leader who listens, who protects, and who never forgets where he came from. Because true power was not in fear or force, but in love, fierce and unyielding. Back in the studio, months after the broadcast, Ibrahim faced AOC once again, this time in a quieter, more respectful conversation. The tension had softened, replaced by mutual recognition. "I was wrong to call you dangerous," AOC admitted, voice steady but sincere. "Your words opened my eyes." The room held its breath. Traoré nodded, not with triumph, but with understanding. His one sentence had broken barriers. It shattered fear, bridged divides, and sparked hope. The world had changed, not because of power plays, but because one man dared to speak truth with courage and heart. As the broadcast ended, millions felt something rare, hope that was real, deep, and lasting. Ibrahim Traoré's story was no longer just a headline. It was a legacy, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, one voice can ignite a movement. He stood not as a symbol of danger, but as a beacon of change, compassion, and strength. To everyone watching, his message was clear. No matter how hard the fight, love and truth will always find a way. If this story moved you, if Ibrahim Traoré's courage touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Your voice matters. Let's keep the conversation alive and the hope growing. Together, we can change the world.